every election can tell us more about where the electorate may be shifting. 2020 was no different when candidate Joe Biden narrowly won Texas's Rio Grande Valley region, despite Hillary Clinton winning the same region by double digits just 4 years earlier. Concerns from Texas Democrats escalated this month as they watched Republicans pour a bunch of money into a South Texas special election, while Democrats decided to prioritize other races. Why? Because the district was disappearing. That was the rationale. But the result was a bit of an embarrassment for Democrats. Republican Mara Flores was able to flip a seat that was once considered reliably blue. And though the seat will, as I said, be essentially disappear in November, Texas Democrats are urging party leaders, hello, this was a warning sign. Pay some attention to the Latino vote and course correct before it's too late. The question is it too late? I'm joined now by one of those lawmakers, Texas Congressman Vicente Gonzalez. Congressman, it's good to see you. Look, you were not happy with how the DCCC handled this. Do you believe this was a singular bad decision, or do you worry this is more about they don't understand the problem that Democrats are having with Latinos? And it is not just South Texas. I'm a South Floridian. We're seeing it in New Mexico. We're seeing it in Arizona. But what's your take?
Well, clearly Latinos are different across the nation. And South Texas is a special place with a traditionally Democratic, conservative Democratic population that's been Democratic for over 100 years. And there's no reason why we should be losing elections here. But we do need to be countering the Republican narrative. I mean, when you have a gun-toting, QAnon-pushing, election-denying candidate win an election, even though it was with less than 1%, and less than 15,000 votes, you know that more could be done to prevent that. And it's just about taking the region seriously, making the commitments and investments that are necessary to talk to this community in the way that they need to be talked to. It's not Los Angeles, it's not New York, it's not even Miami, it's South Texas. And we are a region of people that have been here for generations. Most of the people here didn't cross the borders crossed them. They're moderate by nature, most of them are Catholic, but we're Democrats because the Democratic Party has represented us. And we want to continue this way, and we're going to continue to work, and we're going to win in November.
Is this a Washington problem or an Austin problem? And what I mean is, you know, I look at the Texas Democratic Party and talk about punching below your weight. We talk about punching above your weight. You know, I'm sorry, there's certainly a floor of about 45% on a bad day for Texas Democrats, but the state party acts as if it's Idaho.
Yeah. So the state party lacks resources at the state level, and that's why I've been sounding the alarm in Washington to the DNC and to the D-Trip that, hey, we need help down here. We need help down here to keep our seats blue. We need to counter the message. A few years ago, after the 2020 election, there was a pretty good research study group that talked to people. We talked to hundreds of people, and one of the conclusions that we came up with was that during the 20 election and a little bit before that, it was a one-way conversation. Republicans were pouring heavy resources into the area, and we weren't able to respond. In the city of McAllen, Texas, and Laredo, Texas, and San Antonio, Texas, we now have community centers being opened by the Republican Party that, you know, it's like going to the Boys and Girls Club, and they're recruiting 13 and 14 and 15-year-olds. And it's really just a brainwashing machine that we need to counter, and we need to have a counter message. The Democratic Party is the party of equality. It's the party that has given Latinos in South Texas an opportunity to an education. It's a party that gave our seniors Social Security, that gave us a 40-hour work week, that continues to take care of our minimum wage to make sure they're living wages. The Democratic Party represents our values more than anyone else. We just need to be in front of it, and we need to be communicating. If we're asleep at the wheel and the other side is carrying the narrative, then we're in trouble. And there's no reason for that. We just need to have the political will, both in Washington and in Austin, to make the infrastructure investments in the region to assure that our area continues to stay blue and eventually turn the entire state blue.
There seems to be two issues in particular that Democrats have just seemed to not figure out how to talk to Latinos about. I'm curious your take, which is crime specifically and education, right? Where there's a lot of Latinos who don't mind charter schools and are open to different ideas and things like this, and that sometimes runs counter there. Is there ways to fix those issues in particular, or is it just sort of do Democrats need to be better educated about what Latino voters care about?
Absolutely, and also these issues are regional. They may be different here than in Los Angeles, than in Austin or Dallas, Texas. And we need to start looking at things regionally. We need to start studying people's ideas from a regional standpoint. We're talking about Latinos on the border in South Texas, kind of a rural region. And you have to have different talking points. You have to know what's bothering people in this area and how we can improve people's lives. And we've done it for over a century. We've improved people's lives. We've educated a whole generation. People are doing so much better in South Texas today than they were a generation or two ago, and it is because of democratic values. But we can't stop talking about it. Democrats do the most and brag the least, and that's our problem. That's one of the problems in our country, that right now, President Biden has accomplished so much. We have one of the lowest unemployment rates in generations. We have infrastructure projects coming up across the country. We need to be out at every infrastructure project that has given people clean water and drainage and better housing and better education, and we need to be bragging about it, because that is exactly what Republicans do. In fact, in some areas, they're bragging about projects that we funded and that we created. And we need to be vigilant of this, and we need to be expressive, and we need to be communicating with the American people and with Latino communities such as in South Texas.
Congressman Vicente Gonzalez, Democrat from Texas. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective with us. Good to talk with you.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.